Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Doctor to Doctor in the Chat Room. I am part of your host, Dr. Rhonda Shaw, and we have the other part of the D2D host in the chat room, Dr. Nicole West. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. How are you, Dr. Shaw?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's a blessing to be here. We are already halfway through the first month of 2022, and that is just amazing. And I am so grateful to God for that. 2020 and 2021 were truly some challenging years. So I thank God for that. We want to, as always, remind you guys that we are still in the midst of a pandemic. And we want you to use those necessary precautions to stay safe. Seems like there's one variant after the other popping up. I've been getting a lot of reports of children being sick. In fact, my grandkids' school had to shut down for a week because of the increase in COVID cases. So guys, stay safe, wear your mask. You know, I think that's probably our greatest protection is wearing our mask. And if we can, get vaccinated. If there's no reason why you cannot, go ahead and get your vaccines and your booster vaccines as well. We thank you guys always for coming back every Saturday to share this hour with us as we discuss relevant topics that impact our communities and our world. And today is no different. And I am so happy to have my special guest today who has been on with me a number of times. And I am always intrigued and given so much, and she imparts so much knowledge into us, into me, our audience, about all things civil rights. And the last time she was here, I believe we were kind of in the midst of maybe the George Floyd era and all of those things, the happenings around that incident. But we today have a very special guest, and I'm going to ask Dr. West if she would introduce our guest today.
I am happy to. So first, let me just say there's really not enough time to give our guest all of her accomplishments and her contributions their real due. I was looking at her bio and I was like, there's just not enough time in this to really, really give it as much credit as really is due.
And it's not just words on paper, it's the real deal. Yeah.
Right. But nonetheless, I will give it a try. So our special guest today is Miss Gloria Jean Sweetlove. She is the president of the Tennessee State Conference, NAACP, and has been since January of 1996. She's an advocate for education, for civil rights, for social justice. She has established an annual legislative day on the Hill and a race relations summit. And something that I'm really interested in hearing about, she's currently establishing the first Excellence and Equality in Education program for at-risk youth. And in short, that program is called Excel. So I'm really excited to hear about that. But Ms. Sweetlove has made a history of recruiting, training, and empowering volunteers across the state to advocate for justice and equality. She's a member of the National Board of Directors of the NAACP and currently serves as chair of the Southeast Region NAACP Leadership Caucus. Ms. Sweetlove is a faithful member of her church, where she serves in the teaching ministry and as the superintendent of the Sunday school department. So again, really not enough time to really give all of your accomplishments.
And you left out one thing. She's my cousin.
Oh, yes, ma'am. So we are really happy to have you here today. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah.
Welcome to Doctor in the Chat Room again. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful, and thank you all so very, very much for having me. I'm always excited to come on. You guys do wonderful work. I want you to know that when I'm out traveling around everywhere, I listen to you. You know, I put you on WOJG.com, and wherever I am, I can hear you. And you're doing great work, have great guests. So I'm just honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That means a lot. So when you were here last time, I remember one of the first questions that I asked you about, it was in relation to a study that had been done by the Pew Research Center, where the study showed that race relations had worsened in America under the leadership of President Trump. And we discussed that last time, and now we're in a new administration. And although I know we have not been into this administration very long, do you feel that we're moving in a different direction? Does it feel different? Do you see any difference now?
Well, unfortunately, let me say that, and you guys know, I really do believe that the whole Trump administration was just backlash from that first excellent Black president that we had.
Yeah.
So what we got with Trump was all of the people that were really mad, like Trump, about President Barack Obama being president. And so that came out in all kinds of different ways. I don't think, whereas President Biden definitely has a different take on it, and he's always been very liberal, very open-minded. I know personally from when he was a senator in Wilmington, Delaware, that folks there love him. The NAACP presidents, everybody loves Joe Biden. One of the things, because he, different from some of our senators, is a senator that would go to bat for the needs of the people in his area. But no, I think racism, I think we are seeing now what's been real all the time, because people used to be politically correct.
Yes.
And now the DDT, after the DDT administration, because I either call him DDT or 45, but after that, people felt like it was okay for them to say what they had been feeling all along. It's interesting how people are very, just very arrogant, even at things like, just blatantly arrogant, just walk over you, almost drive over you at the service station. Now, my dad would say, this is the way they've been feeling all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say like him, this is the way they've been feeling all the time. But now they feel like with Proud Boys and all of these folks and Rush Limbaugh, bless his dead soul, all those folks that said it was okay, to just be arrogant and racist, they feel like they've been given the right to do that.
Yeah.
The real people still are the real people. It is interesting how even people are arrogant about you wearing your mask. I mean, okay, I'm going to wear my mask because even though I've been vaccinated and encouraging people to be vaccinated is something that the association has done from the very beginning, because we feel like we need to protect ourselves. If I want to wear my mask, that is my freedom. Why would you try, to be arrogant about me wearing my mask? And I'm going to stay my social distance from you. But people, you all kind of turned up noses and, all kind of spiteful looks and all of this.
You know what? When this pandemic first hit, or when it was officially announced, right? I remember the day that we were sent home to work from home, right? And everybody was, bombarding the grocery stores just like we do, when we think we're going to get inclement weather. And I stopped at, 3 or 4 grocery stores just trying to piece together enough food because we were just like in an unknown phase. You didn't know what was about to happen or whatever. And and one of the things that they said before we left the office was make sure you're wearing your mask or whatever. And so I did. And I was in this one grocery store and I was walking down an aisle and I passed this gentleman and he looked at me and literally burst out in laughter.
Wow.
And I've thought about this man so much since this has been over 2 years, I guess now. And I'm like, I wonder where is he now, right? Because he looked at me and laughed and shook his head as if, you idiot, you fool, believe in the hype. Yeah.
Right.
So you're right.
And I really think that's the travesty of what's going on, and this real divide is that it is killing people. It is literally misinformation and disinformation is literally killing people because it has gotten so the source, we don't go to reliable news sources, the NPRs and the other places to get our news. We get our news from social media, from the Facebooks and, the YouTubes and Instagrams and the TikToks and all of that. So we believe fake news. And it's amazing. You know what I said at first, I said, oh, okay, we got a lot of people that really aren't educated enough to understand. But when you've got folks with doctorate degrees and all kind of advanced degrees and people that have studied forever and supposed to know, ignoring the science. We've always known that, I believe the science. I tell people all the time, and I always tell my pastor, I say, I'm very hard-headed, but when I pay people to tell me what's wrong with me, then I'm going to follow their advice.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've got scientists, we've got heads of CDC, heads of infectious disease, all of that. And we are refusing to believe what they say.
Right.
Well, education is one thing, but my grandma used to say we got educated fools now. So
there you go.
You can have all the book knowledge in the world, but you gotta have some
mother have some wisdom. There you go. Exactly.
The issue seems to be that it was politicized really from the beginning. So, just something as simple as wearing a mask became a political statement for some folks. And I can't help but wonder now if the CDC is almost falling into that trap by shortening the quarantine time. I mean, we went from 14 days to 10 to now 5. And it does seem like it is all about pressure of keeping people in the workforce and keeping people, making viable income. But the pandemic has not lessened its impact. It has actually gotten worse. But the CDC has, minimized their requirements. And so I can't help but wonder if that's also political.
I don't know. I don't know, Dr. West, but I do have a son that works in the medical profession. And one of the things that he has said is that they have known all along. And this is the same son that nobody can believe I've stayed at home because, Dr. Shaw would tell you, I used to be gone to New York or Washington or somewhere twice a week or whatever. But, when he told me something in the very beginning that they weren't telling everybody, that he said, Mom, it's extremely contagious and it's airborne. Now he told me that way back before they were even talking about it. But what he said is that by the time you test positive, that it's probably already been in your system 3 or 4 days or so. So with that, and then doing the 5 days, and then having a negative test after that 5 days, he said that is sufficient. So that makes me believe that, after that 5 days, if you have a negative test, you probably are okay. But, I'm on the point right now, I just really, really believe that it is so important that everyone get vaccinated. As Dr. Shaw said when we came on, unless your doctor has told you that your system will not stand it, you really need to do that. It's about taking care of you. Don't politicize your own health. That's the amazing thing to me. And I think it was one of the doctors, might have been Dr. Thriakill or somebody from the infectious disease group from the Memphis area said last week sometime that now when they get unvaccinated people in the hospital. They're having to admit them because they've got COVID really bad. One of the first things they ask is, can I get a vaccine? No, you have to get the vaccine before you get sick.
Exactly.
But isn't it interesting that, that we have, and you know what I call them? I say that we are being plagued with demons of racism, demons of addictions, demons that are viruses. And don't play it down, because the word speaks about demons. And I really think that's what we've got. And we've got this whole demon of misinformation and disinformation out there that's basically killing our people, because they are refusing, they believe the hype. And so they're refusing to take care of themselves.
And it's really interesting, that people witness people getting sick and dying, right?
Yes.
That refused to be vaccinated, that refused to wear masks and any of the other precautions, right? And they die, and somehow or another people will say, oh, it's just a whole, they died, but it wasn't from COVID. Like, this is all made up. I mean, when in my lifetime have we ever seen people dying at this rate?
Right.
I mean, in my family alone, the number of people that succumb to COVID, right? And so you're not gonna tell me, you're not gonna tell me that I don't need to be at least be cautious. And I say all the time, and if you don't want to get vaccinated, I mean, people got all these reasons they say they shouldn't, even though we've all been immunized and all of these other things, the very least you could do is wear a mask. That's the very least you could do.
Well, here's a really interesting some information that I saw this morning. Past couple of weeks, Dr. Shaw, I've been looking for a test to test myself and Jackson, because he may have been exposed, and we couldn't find one. I called like 12 different places. Nobody had any at-home tests. Nobody had any day of drive-up tests. And some information that I just got today. If you go to covidtest.gov, you can sign up. Every household is eligible for 4 free at-home COVID-19 tests. They're completely free, and they ship to you in 7 to 10 days. I just did it. It took less than 30 seconds. So that at least is a good, of information for, people who might be looking.
Right. And the link is on our website also, Dr. West. If you go to tnnaacp.org, it is on our website. So that link is there where you can sign up to be able to do that.
Okay, so I know we're at break, and we're going to take a break and come back. We're here with State President Gloria Jean Sweetlove, and we will be back in just a moment on 94.7 FM. Thank you for sticking around with us on Doctor to Doctor in the chat room. We are here with President Gloria Jean Sweetlove. We thank her so much for just taking a moment to come and talk with us. We know how busy she is, and we thank you so much. So you were talking about this divide, and and all that you said before the break. The operative word for me was divide, and that's my segue into how can people that are not of color, as we say, become better allies for ending racism? As we are in this phase of celebrating the legacy and life of Dr. King, and all that he stood for, I mean, it's amazing that we are still on this topic, right? After all these years, but we're here. It's a reality. So how can people that aren't of color become allies?
I think you have to be very intentional. And you know what? And I encourage people to reach out as advocates, and I encourage people to become members of the NAACP.
People, not Black people.
We don't think about, and I think this is especially in the South. People. we don't think about the fact that the NAACP is National Association for the Advancement of People of Color. And people of color, Chairman Julian Bond used to say all the time, come in all colors. So we encourage them. We are progressive all the way, always have been. We were founded by more white people than Black people, and people that wanted to make a difference. And that's one of the things Dr. West asked a minute ago about our Excel in Education piece that we do here with the NAACP State Conference. And you Dr. Shaw knows we've done parent advocacy training. We are now doing education equity focus groups to try to get community people to talk about and give input to the state and the State Department of Education on what this new funding formula should look like. We're going to be doing in just a few weeks, or working to get some STEM and robotic classes, working with some of the middle schools in the Jackson-Madison County area. But we do those things in education because it is important to try our very best to involve people of all colors and involve parents and administrators of all colors. We're excited to say that when we did the parent advocacy training, I'll brag about my superintendent in Haywood County. He made sure that all of his administrators, as well as himself, came and went through that, because he looked at what my curriculum was. He looked at the intent. Our intent is to make parents the greatest advocates that their children can have. So we need people to become advocates. If you look at all of the things out there that are going on in the world, the only way they change is that we become advocates. Each person advocate for those things that are important and those things that are right. I clearly say to people, if you are concerned about others, you need to be a part of the NAACP, because we have a advocacy organization that works for everyone. We're not, years ago, they talked about why aren't you called for Black folks? No, we're not just for Black folks. We are for people of color, and people of color come in all colors. So I encourage people to do that. I encourage people to get involved, to see what's going on. I'm an education advocate. Don't you know I advocate for little brown and white babies just like I do Black babies?
Yeah.
It is important. And until we can really back up and be the America that we said we wanted to be the America that Dr. King challenged us to be when he said that we had given a bogus check and it had come back with insufficient funds because we had not done those things that we need to do. That's what we need to do. It is important that, it's really something that as a girl, I saw Dr. King marching in Memphis and places. And I'm a grown woman with a great grandbaby. And we still have the same kind of issues. Have the same
conversations.
And Dr. Shaw,
so it's important to get involved. We can't stand on the sideline. On the sideline. You gotta get involved.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about silence is complacency. If you're not part of the solution, then you are essentially part of the problem, or you are the problem.
Part of the problem. That's right. Well, he said all it takes for evil to succeed is that when good men and women do nothing. And that's all it takes. We've got, and that's what I want to say, really to our white sisters and brothers. When you know that it's wrong, I think about, we've got 2 senators right now that are holding up the Voting Rights Act. And I'm wondering about the people in their home states. Why aren't they writing to them? Our Youth and College Division spent yesterday writing to our senators, of course, who oppose everything.
Yeah.
I can't say that on the air, but okay, but it's important that the people, their constituents, if you believe in what's right, if you believe every person ought to have a right to the ballot box, a free, unfettered right to the ballot box, that we ought to make it, for democracy to work, people have to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So if you believe in it, if you believe in Dr. King, why don't you tell the people from their states, tell them you need to vote for this? That's what I'm talking about, stepping up to do what the right thing. It has never been easy, and it's definitely not going to get any easier, but we need good people, good people to stand up for what they know is right.
Amazingly, people and, talk about rights. We were talking about, our right to wear a mask or not wear a mask. It's amazing how, in this one vein, people harp on their rights, yet they don't think everybody deserves rights, their own individual rights. I mean, rights, right? There becomes some line drawn in the sand, when it comes to certain demographics or certain people, ethnicities and all of that. And I find that very interesting. So we talked about this last time too. Racism seems to be this indoctrination, right? Do you believe that white America as a whole will really ever understand the plight of Black people? Because, when we start having these conversations, I was on, and I'm like you, I can't really get detailed about it, but I was on a Zoom that, where they were celebrating Dr. King's Day this week. And, there was a white person that was running for a local office talking about, I think the question was like how, the office itself, how they would tie that into, what Dr. King's legacy is and all of that. And he made a couple of comments about, we know that we've come a very long ways, as it relates to race relations, and, but we know we definitely still have a ways to go. And I thought, if every other person of color listening is thinking like me, that was a really detrimental comment, because as a white person, how do you speak to how far? How do you really speak to how far we've come, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And because I think most Black people see racism coming in other forms, like they change the way they do it. I'm talking about racist people. Not all people are racist, but they've changed the way they do it. We say, it's not slavery, anymore in terms of being bound in chains and, and being whipped and all of that. But it comes in other forms, right? So
Ahmaud Arbery and Eric Gardner. And,
it's coming in other forms. So I mean, really, have we come as far? And will they really ever understand the plight of our people?
Well, I'm not sure they will. Okay, I'm not sure they will. I always hoped that my little grandsons wouldn't have to fight the same fight that I fought. But I see they will have to, maybe in a different form, but they will. One of our board of directors, member of our board of directors, Dr. Wendell Anthony, who's president of the Detroit branch, put out I almost call it a white paper. He put out a press release the other day, and he said, don't celebrate the king without doing the work of the kingdom.
Yeah.
And he talked about the fact that we next to have all these people talking about Dr. King, but really, even quoting from the I Have a Dream speech, because that's the only one they know, but aren't willing to take a stand to make voting rights possible, to do anything to make better. But until you have really walked in a person's shoes, you can't even believe begin to think about how it is. One of the things that I used to say a lot of times to my school board members was, if you don't know anybody that get food stamps, you can't really say you understand children being hungry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't understand the value of SNAP programs, and you can't understand the value of free lunch or free breakfast for kids that probably slept at auntie's or the cousin's house or somebody's house last night. One of the things that, and I know we're running fast, I am, the governor did appoint, he and Commissioner Swin appointed me to one of the committees to look at school funding. And of course, you know, as we look, it has to be student focused. But you know, as we look at this, one of the things we are building now, a pyramid of things that we say must be in the formula. And one of the things I told them must be in there is the parent liaison piece. And not as a volunteer, we got to make sure that it's paid for. Because I told them that in the rural areas, like where I live, they are not wraparound services. Right. And guess what? We've got to make sure that we reach those kids that don't know, that might have slept at a cousin's house last night on their floor or on their sofa, that had nobody to help them with their homework. I really think one of the things this pandemic has done, because it made us go to virtual learning and et cetera, it has really showed us the divide. It has really showed us, because kids who had, you know, access to a computer, I talk about my little nephew, and I said, you know, his mom, when she wasn't home, she would send him up to my house, and when it's time, I had the times for his classes, and we'd go in and get on the computer. So there his teacher was. I would come in at the end of it to make sure that anything he needed to follow up on that was there to do it. If you don't have that kind of service for a child, if the child doesn't have internet service, if they don't have a device they can get on, because one of the things our education program did a year or so ago is we made sure that kids at the Brownwood Boys and Girls Club and at two of the sites in Jackson, that they had iPads, you know, because a lot of kids didn't even have anything to be able to get on virtually. But if you can't relate to that, you can't relate to a parent that either does not have time or will not take the time to help the child with the homework, or even check with the teacher to see what they need. If you can't relate to that, then you don't understand why we need wraparound services for Black and brown and underprivileged children. So until you've walked in those shoes, until you understand that, you know, most people don't understand what it's to be like to be hungry, or what it's like to do without. So until you can understand those pieces, you don't understand the real need. It amazes me, and I say all the time, that we continue in this state because we live in a racist state. And I'll say that straight out, and I say that to legislators, and I say it to the governor because it's real. But until you understand, you know, Sexton is from Crossville. Crossville is about as country as it can be. It calls itself a little city, but it's Crossville, okay? He is the chair, okay? He's the Speaker of the House. He don't understand what happens in Metro Nashville, in suburban Memphis. He has Metro Memphis. He has not the slightest idea. He doesn't understand the needs and etc. So until people are willing to walk a mile in the other person's shoes, we cannot move toward equality at all.
Because that child that you were talking about sleeping on an aunt's couch or a grandma's house or whatever, technically and actually even legally, is the definition of homeless, right? And
That's
you
exactly
know,
right.
and you know, I love when Dr. King said, you know, how can you ask a bootless man to pull himself up by his bootstraps, right?
Yes.
And so we're
That's
always
right.
so quick
That's
to
what
say what folks ought to do, you know, they ought to get up and go to work, they ought to get up, you know, when we
Right.
know, we there are a whole lot of jobs out there but it sometimes, because of the quality of those jobs, it takes 5, to make a household operate, even halfway decently, right? And so, I mean, how can you, and I'm just really piggybacking, how can you expect, people to have a quality life when we have all these substandard opportunities?
Right. And it's all about the lack of resources that other people take for granted having. You have a car that can get you to the job. You have gas in the car. You have the proper clothes to wear to the interview to get you the job. I mean, all of these resources that some people don't have, that other folks just can't understand not having access to. And it goes
And one of the things I tell people when they talk about, when you talk to employees and they talk about not being able to afford to pay $15 an hour, and I tell them, are you telling me that, because if you're making $15 an hour, even before taxes are taken out, guys, you can't buy 4 gallons of gas. You can't buy 4 gallons of gas. Gas is almost $4 a gallon. So you're saying that this person, and if I'm working at McDonald's, you already know my car is probably will hardly get me to the job. We don't have enough public transportation to get us to and from where we need to go. So people start out, even people that want to work, start out at a disadvantage.
Absolutely. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back on 94.7 FM. And we are still here on 94.7 FM with the Reverend President. We missed that little important detail. She is also a minister, but we are still here with Gloria Jean Sweetlove, and we thank her so much again for being here with us. We're having such a great conversation that seems to be going like flying. The time is just flying. So much that we wanted to talk about and wanted to ask. Here's something that I want to ask, and I know you probably don't have a solid answer, but I guess I would just love to hear your perspective on it. Now that we've been under the 45 administration, and the people that liked being in that era, right? Finally got a taste of, it probably felt like old times or something, right? And, do you think that kind of set us up for those types of future administrations? Now people are really going to be pushing to have that, because like you said early on, you said, we've been so politically correct, right? It wasn't that, like your dad said, it's been there all the time, but we've just remained politically correct. Now people have been in a space where they could be a little more, as you say, arrogant, blatant, whatever.
Yes, I think so. I really do think it will not surprise me if 45 runs again in 2024. It will not. We have become tolerant because, see, that was the thing about it. He is so arrogant and so blatant at getting at people, at his enemy. It's like, it's almost an antichrist situation. It's like people are afraid to oppose him even when they know he's wrong. And that's the piece that really perturbs me, is we've got all these people that know that is wrong, but yet they are not willing to stand up for it. And that goes back to my quote by Dr. King earlier. All it takes for evil to flourish is that good people do nothing. If you do not oppose that, it's not going to surprise me, because I'll even say, that we've seen congressmen and senators in other places that come out with this stuff that they know is wrong. So, and they're doing that to try to appeal to that base, so that racist base, because that's what they want to do. They'd rather divide people than see than see us move on. But what I want to say, and I really do hope that we've got people of all races that listen in. The important thing we have to remember as Americans, because we live in a democracy, and democracies are very fragile, and they can easily tumble over. If 45 had been successful in getting Vice President Pence not to certify that election and keeping that turnover of power from happening, we have never had to have military might to show in the turning over, a changing of the guard. I mean, that's part of our democracy. If it gets so we've got to do that, then that means the militia, the army will have to say, and who controls it? So, we got to think about it. And I hope our good for white friends, and I hope those people that really want America to be the real America, that we talk about the Constitution, that most people don't know, that 45 didn't know a line of it. He couldn't even talk about the preamble. But I mean, if you really want a place of where freedom and equality is, we've got to be willing to stand up to make sure that the racism and that division does not cause our democracy to tumble.
Yeah.
So what do you say to those people, those allies of ours who were out there marching and who were out there during the George Floyd time? Those people of, not of color, who are trying to change history with us. What do you say to them?
Yes.
When their response is, well, I do go to the protests, and I do talk to my children about how to treat others, and I do look out for fellow man, and how else can I help? When it comes to
I think,
go ahead.
I think we've got to do more than just go to the protests. I think we have to become, each person has to become a committee of one to try to share that idea of being a real advocate with someone else. I think you've got to share it with, it just can't be you and your kids, but tell grandmama, yes, it's important. And I think you've got to do more than protest. That's the piece. We've got to make sure that people that have that there are restoration rights available, to make sure we get citizenship and voting rights, and we get restoration back to those people that have spent time incarcerated. That we got to make sure that there are some jobs available, that we get some employees that are willing to have employees that were once incarcerated. We got to make sure that that the pie is split so everybody can have a piece of it. They say the reason that they were about to arrest George Floyd was they think he might have passed a counterfeit $20 bill. In urban places, there must be jobs and services available to those people that have been, for whatever reason, disenfranchised. Maybe it was because you spent time in prison. Maybe it's because you don't have enough education. Maybe it's because you don't have the resources to even try to get to where the good jobs are. But whatever that reason is, we gotta tell them, you gotta advocate to make sure that the playing field is even, so that a George Floyd does not have to walk in and possibly pass a bogus $20 bill and then get arrested and killed. That's what we got to do. We got to spend our time, and guys, I'm not against Facebook, but we got to spend our time on positive things not on things that are not what we need to do.
Yeah. So, when you were talking, I thought about there was this one person running for senator who was actually in office that was really doing some very blatant things, or saying some very blatant discriminatory type things or whatever. And I hate that we even categorize ourselves as, as Black and white and all of that, as opposed to just human beings, the human race, right? But we all do, most of us do. So, and I'm prefacing what I'm about to say. There was a white friend of mine who I really consider a friend of mine that asked me in this particular race, I'm going to vote, but I don't know who to vote for in this particular senator race. I don't know anything about this one. I don't know anything about that one. What do you know? Which one would you vote? I've seen such and such, she's been talking a lot. What do you know about her? Would you vote for her? And I said, no. And I said, and if you care about me, you won't vote for her. And I believe you. And she said, that's all. She said, that's all you had to say, and I said,
and I think that
I said, if
that's
you
what we
voted
have
for,
to do. I think we have to do that.
Yeah. And I said, if you voted for her, you would be okay. But I wouldn't.
Right.
I may possibly not be okay as a result of you voting for her. I would love to hear.
And that's what.
Go ahead.
No, go on.
I would love to hear your perspective on the verdicts, like, George Floyd and what happened in that case, and particularly the Ahmaud Arbery, and we got all these, all 4 people guilty and the likes. What's your perspective on that? That was just really an interesting. Yeah.
Well, we wish that we hope that justice would always be blind, as it is shown on the scale. We always hope that. We wish that jurors would always make the right decision. But because the other thing is, and I can't call his name, that's how much I think of him. I think the little white boy that shot the people and killed them was just as guilty. He was just as guilty as the policeman that held his knee on George Floyd's neck. And I think it's important. And that's why I tell people, good people need to serve on juries to make sure that the jury is balanced, to make sure, this week's Sunday school lesson is talking about justice and judges. And making sure that we are honest in our deportment of our witnesses and our judges. I hope that Black men don't think that it has now become normal that white men are convicted for our death.
Wow.
I hope that they understand that is not the norm.
Yeah.
Even with Crump as an attorney, that is not the norm. I also, and that's why I've been blessed, because I've got sons. Rhonda knows I got wonderful sons.
Yeah.
And I've always prayed for my sons and my grandsons, because just as my dad prayed for my brother, because my dad grew up when it was really, really, really Jim Crow. And he had a scar on the side of his face. And I can remember when I was 4 years old, because I sat in his lap until my feet would hit the floor. And I asked him where that scar came from. And he told me that he was carrying another cousin from LaConya to Hickory Grove to Brownsville to the aunt's house. And Rhonda knows that we've got this side of the family, Dr. West, that is so fair that, at night you don't know what they are. And the policeman stopped him thinking he had a white woman in there, when he actually had his first cousin in there, taking her to their aunt's house. And they, without asking him anything, hit him in the temple and told him, don't breathe. If they did, he would shoot him.
Wow.
And I grew up with that in my mind. And I told my sons about it, and I've told my grandsons about it. And it's a shame. And that happened probably in the 20s or the 30s. But it's a shame that I have to have that same fear for my sons and my grandsons today as I had then. So I don't want us to get into thinking that the verdict for Ahmaud Arbery and the verdict for George Floyd are what we're going to normally see, because we are living in a world that's not what we're going to normally see.
Yeah.
So what I think we have to do is continue to encourage and try to make advocates of people and continue to try to make it a more even playing field, so that we don't have the kind of police brutality, that we don't have over policing, that we don't have young people getting into all kinds of trouble and breaking the law, that we continue to fight the addictions of violence, the addictions of all of these, I won't say crack cocaine, but all of these drugs, that we continue to fight those things with educational excellence, with making sure that young people are learning to be involved and giving back.
I have a friend on a police force who told me a story about a white teenager who brandished a knife during an altercation. And the police were called, and this young man was not arrested. This young man was essentially given, a warning, sent back home with this weapon.
Right.
And I just couldn't help but think about how different that would have been if it had been a young Black man. If he would have been given the benefit of the doubt, if he would have been sent home. And I just, I don't believe he would have. I believe he would have been sitting in the back of that police car, handcuffed.
Dead.
Right.
Let's be real.
Right.
Dead. Right. Because it's considered a deadly weapon.
Yep.
And they are trained, they are not trained to think. And I understand, because like you say, I've got friends and relatives that are on police forces, and we see the kinds of things that are happening every day. But we have to, that's why the community has to be involved. And we got to advocate to make things better for young people so that they won't turn to a life of crime. And so, so that they won't wind up a statistic.
Yeah. So real quick, you specified and distinguished the NAACP as the National Association of Advancement for Colored People and all people of all colors. And so we have less than 2 minutes here. Tell me how you would want our people of all colors in America to move forward at this point.
I would love to see us start not seeing each other as sisters and brothers, and working for the betterment of the community, working to try to make things better for everybody in the community, working to trying to make the playing field more even, working so that every person can vote their choice, working so every student has a high quality, excellent education, working so that every person has a job that will be able to take care of them and their family so that they can have decent food, healthcare, housing, and et cetera. That's what I would advocate for. That's what we advocate for every day, to make it excellent for all of us. And it's possible. We are supposed to be one of the greatest nations in the world.
Yeah.
So if we just take the time to look and help our neighbor, to help the person that's next to us, to pass laws that benefit all of us instead of passing a law that, you know, is going to make give gun opportunities to everybody, and we are breaking records every day for number of people killed and etc. You know, I grew up in a household where there were lots of guns because my daddy was an avid hunter and he hunted everything from coons and possums to bird. So it was all kind of caliber guns there, but we were taught gun safety. We was taught to respect them. And we always knew that, anybody with mental illness and etc. should not have access to guns.
Yeah.
So now, we say we've got children and family with all depression and all these other kinds of things, but yet we're giving them access to guns. So, that's the world that we advocate for.
Thank you so much. You know that I have the highest level of admiration for you. I love you so much, and I thank you so much for taking a moment. We thank you guys for taking a moment to come back and share with us, and we ask that you come back next Saturday, the same chat channel, same chat time, and here on Dr. to Doctor in the chat room, and we will see you then on 94.7 FM.